Dear Mom and Dad, this one's for you. I want you to know that I love both of you very dearly. I truly do. I wish that things could be different, and I wish that we could talk amongst ourselves about these things. But I've reached the final stage of grief, which is acceptance. I've accepted that this is the way things are going to be. This is more healthy for me to be no contact. It may seem strange why I'm doing it in this way, but the reason why I wanted to dedicate this video to the both of you is to finally be able to let it out. To let it out without interruption. To let it out without being condemned. To let it out without the blame shifting, without the gaslighting, all of that. This is for me, and hopefully this can foster a sense of understanding. But even if it doesn't, I still want to share this because I know that there are a lot of other people that are dealing with the same thing. And I want this video to be a testament to how we should never suffer in silence. And whatever form it takes with us expressing ourselves, so be it. But please understand, this is not to hurt you. This is not to cause harm or be facetious or malicious in any way. This is purely for me to say goodbye to the relationship that I always hoped we would have. Say goodbye to the old parts of me that may be still held on or has become resentful even. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this because I don't want this to be too long. But again, keep in mind, this video is for those that feel like they're not able to speak from the heart. They're not able to express themselves. Maybe they feel like they shouldn't or they can't or they're afraid to. This video is to show that it is okay to express yourself and to feel and to be true to you and to others about that. So I'm going to start with you, Mom. We had a lot of good memories. I'm already getting choked up, but we're going to do it anyway. We had a lot of great memories. I remember riding with you to go visit Papa and, visit the family and hell, just getting something to eat or whatever. I remember we used to always love getting Vietnamese food. It's like, dang, I just did my makeup, girl. Oh my God. But you know what? No, I'm gonna let it fly. It needs to come out today, right? I remember as a child, you always told me the importance of, learning new things, doing well in school. And you told me the importance of, your education. I remember some of the stories, even of your own life that you shared with me. There were times where you did open up. And, I held on to the relationship for the longest because of the things that you went through. I'm not going to touch on those things here. One thing I'm not going to do is tell somebody else's story, but you know what we talked about. And my heart broke for you. And I always wanted to be that little girl that always was able to make her mom happy and proud. We had a lot of laughs, even thinking about it now. I remember you, me, and my brother, that's all we would do. But on the other side of things, there were things that my brother didn't see. And that's because, he came later on in life. But those were the things that I was still grappling with. Even up until this point, I'm still working through these things. The statements I'm going to try to use here are "you really hurt me when" statements, instead of being angry and bitter. And I want to also say, before I get into the things that hurt me, thank you for making sure I was fed, clothed. I didn't really want for anything. You always got me all the newest gadgets. You knew I loved Game Boy. You knew I loved music. So you got me all these things. And I mean, people would think, well, that should be enough. But Mom, I need you to know, I didn't need things. I needed you. I needed a mother who was supportive, who was loving, who would protect me. And so I won't drag this on too long, but there's some things that I should let out and that you should know. And for anyone else that may have heard stories about what we've been through or whatever, hell, you can use this to finally know my side of things if you so choose to. But this is just to get this out. It's time. It's time. All those things that you got me did not fill the quote unquote void within me that, or should I say, did not fill the yearning that I had for that type of relationship that I saw my friends have. Going out with their mom, and, their mom was always saying, I'm so proud of you and I love you, and, being supportive and compassionate and understanding. But instead, things were really toxic. I'm going to start at the age of 3. At a very young age, I remember you telling me things like, don't show emotion. It's a sign of weakness. And a lot of people these days believe that, but that's not true. I feel like a part of that kind of led me to wanting to run to other things, toxic habits, to try to hide those emotions. I think a part of me did internalize what you told me as a child. And I remember at 3 years old, I just wanted to spend time with you. I know I might have been a little clingy, maybe I was, because I see it in my dog at times. But then again, I'm not really clingy with him like that. But anyways, I'm trying to make sense. You see, I'm trying to make sense and justify things that should not have happened. I shouldn't have had to go through this. At the age of 3, this is my first memory. I remember I was in my room. I think I came out to you to ask you something, or I think, I wanted to watch something with you or something. I just knew I wanted to be around you or something, and you were in the room with my stepdad. And I think you had said, go in your room and play or something like that. And I colored on the walls because I was upset. I was 3, I didn't have the ability to articulate myself, obviously, at that age. But I always thought back to that because you used to talk about that story all the time, and you made me wash the wall, and I did. But I always thought back and was like, why did I do that? And after going through addiction and unpacking everything, I figured it out. But that's my first memory. The stepfather that you were with when I was around that age, the man that you were with, the guy that was my stepfather at the time, you told me I had said something like he had touched me somewhere. And there are so many memories that are a blur, but there are some that are just burned into my mind. And you told me that you asked him about it and he told you no, nothing happened. And I think it was around when I was being bathed or something like that. You said he was giving me a bath or something, and I had told you something like that. But thinking back on it, you stayed with this man. Now I'm going to be honest with you. I was very young. One thing I know about me is I've always been me, though. Always. And I know I wouldn't make something like that up. Because you taught me, hey, let me know, if somebody does this to you. I told you about that with my father. And it just seemed like you maybe asked them, I don't know what you guys talked about, but it just seemed like you sided with them. And the reason I mention that is because growing up as a young girl, you know how that is. You know how it is to say that something happened to you and not believe and not be believed. And I just remember, even at this age now, whenever I would talk to you about my father or how what he was doing was making me feel, or how some of the things he'd said made me feel, or even finding out outright lies that he had told you that I did to him and said to him, you would always side with him and not even consider where I'm coming from and not even consider my feelings on things. It makes me relive being that little girl where it was just me. I had to fend for myself, being watched by all these different people and not, being at Papa's house all the time. Not saying that I didn't love being with Papa. I loved being with Papa. I felt like he really saw me. But, I remember I used to say things like, why are you, like, you had your friends, like, whenever they met me or whatever, when I was younger, you would tell me things like, well, how come everybody's paying attention to her and not me? I'm your daughter. I don't understand what line of thinking that is. And it really hurt me having to go through all of that. It really hurt me when growing up and getting older, trying to come into my own. I can laugh about some of these things now. Like, for example, I got a 5, 10, 12 head, But as a little girl, and especially the sensitive person that I was and still am, it really hurt me whenever you would make fun of my weight, you would make fun of my pooch, you would make fun of my, the size of my head, you would make fun of my weight, you would make fun of, my gap in my teeth. Just silly things. Now, I will say this, we did laugh about it, and I understand in context, maybe you meant no harm. But honestly, I think I started to internalize those things because I find myself, even in this age, I look at myself and I'm really hard on myself, actually. Now, I'm not blaming anybody for that. I'm just trying to understand myself better and understand, the relationship and its impact that it had on me. And granted, trust me, I'm going to be making a video talking about the things that I've done. So, please understand it's not a one-sided thing here. But, it really hurt me when you would nitpick about the way I looked or my weight. It really hurt me when there were times when, of course, I was being a kid. I would get in trouble in school, I was done with all my work. I loved school. I got straight A's in school. It wasn't an issue. It was a breeze. I was done before everybody, you know. And so whenever I got bored, what would I do? I would act a fool. I would start talking. I was bored. I was trying to entertain myself. And I didn't mean any harm. It's not like I was like a bad kid or anything like that. I mean, even all the teachers would say, we know she's not a bad kid, but it's just she's disrupting the other students. And I wasn't trying to disrupt the other students, but you get what I mean. And so it just really hurt me when, even during school, like the older that I got and having, different stepdads, and I'm not trying to call you out about that. I'm just telling you how I feel. The different stepdads and how it felt like you chose men over me all the time. I couldn't even talk to you. I mean, whenever I would express how I felt about something or a conflict that I had with somebody or, how somebody hurt me and how they did me wrong or whatever, you would then try to explain to me about why that person did it instead of understanding how I feel and trying to show compassion and support. Why are you explaining to me why they did it? It doesn't matter why they did it. They shouldn't have hurt me or whatever it was that I was telling you at the time. There were many times I tried to come to you and tell you about the things that hurt me or the times when you put your hands on me. And we're not just talking about a spanking here or a spanking there. We're talking about hands around the neck and then I'm on the ground and you're banging my head on the ground. Because you're so angry about whatever happened in school. Maybe I was talking too much or maybe I got suspended. Or there were so many things that I was doing that like they caught me doing whatever. Like it was little stuff, to be honest with you. It was little stuff. And I understand the frustration. It was just you taking care of me, but I didn't deserve that. I feel like at a certain point I was lashing out. And trying to get attention anywhere I could because I wasn't getting it at home. And I understand you have a life too. You used to tell me that all the time. I have a life. Nobody's trying to keep you from your life. But, your focus was, you're very male-centered. That's all you were concerned about. You weren't really trying to spend quality time for real. I mean, I'll tell you this, it really hurt me when I was 9 years old. And you didn't tell anybody that you were going to put me on a plane to where Papa was. You didn't tell anybody. I was scared. First time on a plane. I memorized Papa's number. Thank God I did. Called Papa, and he came and picked me up. And he said, I didn't even know that you were out here. It really hurt me when you caught me using the phone at the age of 13 with one of my other stepdads. I mean, there were so many stepdads. So many different places we were moving. No consistency. It really hurt me when every single time you would get physical with me, my stepfathers had to pull you off of me. Even they knew that you know what I mean? Like, they had to intervene and pull you off of me. Think about that. And one of them was my brother's father. He saw it. He was one of the ones that pulled you off me. And that time, I'm really trying to use these statements here. That time, it really hurt me when you caught me using the phone when I was on punishment and you came in my room while I'm just relaxing watching TV. I remember I used to watch these music channels. I used to watch MTV. I used to watch all these different things. And you just came in the room with a pillow. I remember that. And I'm like, what did she do? And you put it over my face. That's when Nana was at the house at the time. And I was so scared. It really felt like you were trying to do something to me. You were doing it for a minute. He pulled you off of me. My stepdad at the time had to pull you off of me because he heard me, where he heard us tussling there. And I'm telling you, stop. I'm scared. Thinking that you were trying to kill me that day. then you're just making light of it, saying, oh, well, I wasn't going to do it. No, you literally were put, as tiny as you are, you have some strength, some physical strength there. And being younger than you, and somebody that's not really a fighter like that, I've always been sensitive. I've always been, I like to laugh. I get hurt, my feelings get hurt or whatever. And you try to make me feel bad for that. Like there was something wrong with me for having feelings. There's nothing wrong with me. I just feel more deeply. I mean, every time I try to come to you about something, you were the very one that was hurting me when you were supposed to be there to protect me. And as I got older, think about it. There was a time when I don't remember the exact age I was, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. My dad still had that Ford Escort, that dark blue Ford Escort. He finally actually came through and picked me up. And I think this was around the time when I had said that I would, during my bath time, something happened with the stepdad at the time from before. And all I remember is my dad getting in an argument with the stepdad. A gun came out. And you getting in the middle of them while I'm sitting in the car crying by myself. I remember the times where I would try to come to you and tell you how I felt about something that you said or the physical stuff that happened. And you just tried to make it seem like, oh, well, you're being disrespectful. And maybe the way that I went about it at first, you're right. Yeah, the way I went about wording things may not have been the best after a certain point. Because it's like I kept trying to express myself, expecting things to change, expecting, you to try to understand and wanting you to be a mother. You would always call me your sister's name, which was very weird because I'm like, why would you be doing that? It's very weird. I am your daughter. Why would you call me somebody else's name? And then say you're a lot like, I'm not like I'm me. It's like it was never me that you were talking to. It was always, I'm reminding you of somebody, or, I'm too much or too sensitive or whatever. And I know this is all jumbled up, but I'll wrap it up with you with this. It really hurt me when, at the age of 6, when I was writing in my diaries, you always got me diaries, and I loved having journals galore, still that way, but I remember it had the little key lock. Things were going on in school, and I remember you were on the phone with a family member. You read in my journal that I didn't want to be here anymore. And for a long time, I really felt that way and never said anything. And it really hurt me when you read what I said and you laughed. Saying, oh, she's just saying that for attention. I don't understand. So, without making this too long, that is some of the issues that I have. Even getting older, getting into addiction, I understand. I was not my best self during that. I wasn't happy about that. I wasn't proud of that. And the more work that I've done leading up into this point, I realized where it stems from. A lot of the things I was doing was a quote-unquote coping mechanism. I was hanging around with the wrong crowd. I ran away at 16 because I was with my dad at that time because there were some physical things going on there. A lot of other stuff going on with that. And I decided, you know what? I can't. I got to get out of here. My father thought I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. Here's the thing. There are things that I wanted to do at the time. There were things that I wanted to do at the time. But I did not run away from home because of that. I ran away from home because I didn't feel safe there anymore. And that's how I got around the wrong crowd. I'm young, impressionable, not really thinking, about it. And then the things that I did made me feel normal. It was very weird. And then that's where I found out I had ADHD and all that. But neither here nor there. I wasn't proud of that. But later on in life, I learned what it stemmed from. It stems from abuse and it stems from trauma. See, when I would explain these things to you, Mom, you would say that I'm trying to blame you. No, I know that I make my own choices. But we have to talk about the root cause of these things. And that's the only reason why I'm able to be 9 months sober today. And what's today, the 20th? July 20th, 2025. I am 9 months sober. From those things. And I admit, I know I said a lot of things and did a lot of things to hurt you at this point in time. But I have always come back and made sure, hey, I know what I said was wrong, but there are some things that need to be addressed. And instead, I get dismissed. I get gaslit. That never happened. Oh, you're being disrespectful. And I'm just trying to express myself. I'm hoping that you can understand where I'm coming from and care. Care enough to be like, you know what, I hear where you're coming from. I'm sorry I did those things to you. That's never been said. And granted, it's on me, for wanting to believe that things would be different. But what else would you think? You're supposed to be my parents. What else am I supposed to think? But now I'm taking control of my life. Now I'm giving myself the love and nurturing that I was seeking from you for years. Now I am validating my own experiences and validating my own voice. And I know now that crying and emotions are not weakness. If anything, it's a strength. Because, honey, it is not easy to feel these things and then work through them sober. It wasn't any easier with the other things either, but I'm just making a point. Oh, it takes a big person to admit how they feel, whether in private or public. It takes a big person. Emotional intelligence is a thing. It just would always blow my mind. It really hurt me when every time I would come to you and tell you about whoever was abusing me at the time or whatever abuse I dealt with or toxicity that I was dealing with, getting cheated on, lied to, hands put on me, etc. You would still empathize or feign empathy for someone else, but not your own daughter. I even heard from family members some of the things that you said, and I knew that you said them because I never told those family members some of the things that they were repeating back to me. So all the times when I was reaching out to you, you were calling other people. You had more time. You always had more time for everyone else but me. And I'm not saying that it needs to always be about me. See, it was always manipulated whenever I was just asking for what I shouldn't have even needed to ask for to begin with. That's your job to be a parent. It's your job to be supportive. It's your job to nurture your children. It's not about race. You would always say that's that white people stuff. Mom, your grandmother and my great-grandmother was white, ma'am. We have, come on now. What? Well, I identify as black. Ma'am, I'm proud to say who we really are. Papa told us who we are. So great-grandma was white. And Papa told us about the Blackfoot, Cherokee, and Seminole that we have. Then you have Cherokee on your mom's side. She's half Cherokee. Honey, I'm not saying this to act like we're not black. I'm just saying this because I have pride. But then when you would say, oh, that's that white people stuff, whenever I would ask for simple support or at least for you to have my back, you never did. And that's where the anger came from. I'm not saying it was right, some of the things I said. Some of the things I did take too far, and I apologize for that. I truly do. But I know where it came from. So, I want you to know, I will always love you. And I really wish things were different. But now, especially at this stage in my recovery, I want to be better. I want to do better. After I lost Papa, after you lost Papa, after everybody lost Papa, and now my brother, I know there's no going back. There's no going back to that life. I already said I wouldn't go back to that life. And I've had to do all this on my own. And I'm not saying that, I need, people to, clap for me for doing what I'm supposed to do. No, I'm just saying simple support. I see everybody else in their own families getting that type of support. Papa gave that type of support. And I need you to know, Mom, before I close this out with you, Papa already knows everything that happened. I told him. I remember when you didn't even call me when Papa was in the hospital. And granted, I was still active in my addiction, and I understand that. You knew I was in a toxic relationship. It was horrible. I was finding out he was cheating and doing all this stuff, and I think I was so used to just the toxicity. I was used to it already. The yelling, the screaming, the physical stuff, like seeing my dad around with all these women and stuff, like while he was with my stepmom, like all this stuff. You even told me stories about how dad lied on you and dogged you out and was like, didn't want to take care of me because, I guess just all this stuff, like how he's a scammer and all this stuff. But, you used to tell me I was an accident, and like, I try not to take that to heart, but I mean, imagine how that would feel as a kid. Basically that's like being told you're a mistake. When really you two decided to make that decision to lay together, do whatever you did at the time. And I know that you both were young. I totally get it. But it doesn't matter what age you are for you to be able to comprehend the fact that it's important to, be supportive, and it's important to receive support. It's okay to feel. And, I know there are things that you got to work on within you, but I know that you're not going to work through them. I know that you're not. I hope that you do. I'm not saying that, you won't, but I highly doubt it. Things haven't changed. I mean, you lied to me about certain things with my brother. And then tried to tell me and try to make me think that my memory is wrong. I mean, I just don't understand. With what you've been through, you know better. And so my last statement with this to you is, it really hurt me when you told everyone else all the problems that you had with me, lied about some things, embellished some things, but then when it came to me, you would hang up in my face. You would always just try and shut it down. You never allowed me to just say what I needed to say without trying to condemn me for it, without trying to guilt me for it, shame me for it, without trying to twist my words. That is where all this anger came from. Hurt. You cared more about the men that you were with than your own daughter. And you expect that not to hurt me? It hurts. It still hurts. But I'm stronger now. I realize as an adult, the older I got, I'm like, you know what? All the psychology, major, the people that do psychology on YouTube and stuff, I decided to try to help myself by any means necessary. And when I started looking up narcissistic, I'm like, oh my God, I've never met these people before, never commented on their stuff before, never even seen their channels before. And every word they say is right. I relate. So please understand, I know you're not a perfect person, but in order for me to respect you, or anybody for that matter, I deserve respect too. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of protection. I am worthy of all good things in life. And for so long, I believed that I wasn't. And I wished that at some point you would be able to figure that out for yourself. But I know you haven't. You can't keep denying what really happened, Mom. This is not to shame you or any of that. I bet you that's what you're thinking. And that's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate if that's how you're thinking. But this is the only way I can get it out without having to feel guilty for it, without being ashamed or shut out or shut down or dismissed. So I love you, Mom, and I always will. But you no longer have the power over me that you did when I was younger. You no longer tell me who I am. You no longer hold the key to my freedom. You no longer have the ability to hurt me. You will not hurt me anymore. You will not lie to me or on me anymore. And you will not hide from this anymore. So I love you and I release you. I hope that one day you can find healing for yourself. But now I have to do what's best for me. Now, the second and final part of this video is dedicated to you. Dear Dad, there are so many things that I want to say to you, especially in the current condition that you're in. And I just have to say, thinking back, there were a lot of things, words of wisdom that you shared with me growing up about things that you did in your past and how not to do it and the importance of education and, all of that. You even were also the one to get me all the coolest gadgets, and I appreciate that. But just like I said earlier, what I wanted the most, I did not have. And I will say this, thank you. Thank you for all of those things. Thank you for at least feeding me, clothing me. Some parents don't even do that much. So I want to make sure I say thank you to the both of you. But I know that there's hurt on both sides. And I'd like to take the opportunity to express what's really going on. I spoke to my mother, Dad. And she told me some weird things, like how you told her that you had a heart attack or something, and that I stepped over you. That never happened. That never happened. What? You and I both know that never happened. Why? What? Regardless of why you said it, I will say this again. This video is not to be malicious or facetious. See, I know that you and Mom really do think that you know me well, but you really don't. You don't. You see me through a lens that is distorted. I know that I've done my wrongs. I've said some hurtful things, done some hurtful things, like when I ran away. But we'll get to that in a minute. But I think it's important for me to be able to speak my truth again without being condemned, without being shamed or guilted, without being lied on. I just don't understand. There's no reason for that. The first thing that I want to say, before I get into this, I want to apologize for hurting you, because that is not at all what my intentions were. You need to know, and even if you never understand or whatever, this is going to be for me more than anything. It's time for me to let myself be heard. It's time for me to let myself know it's okay to express myself in a healthy way. And it's okay for me to tell the truth about what happened to me. I shouldn't have to hold that back just to protect somebody's reputation or image or whatever. There are so many things that I want to say that it's so jumbled, but I'm going to start here. The broken promises, Dad. This may have seemed really minor to you, but it didn't just happen with you. It happened with your brothers and sisters too. Not all of them, but some of them. One of my aunts. The broken promises, telling me that you'll pick me up and never showing up on those Wednesdays. Telling me that we'd go here or go there and then we'd never do it. All the times when, we would go visit my grandmother. And although I loved being at my grandmother's house, you would just go out doing whatever you wanted to do. Now, granted, I loved the boudin and all that stuff that we used to get and all that, and hanging with the uncles and stuff after you came back to pick me up. But there were things that I need you to understand as a little girl have really impacted me in ways that still affect me today. I'm not blaming you. Again, this is for myself to express all the things that hurt me so I can release it. And Dad, it really hurt me when you would tell me I'm too boyish or, I'm too rough or whatever. I've always been a tomboy, and that's fine. You can have an opinion. Everybody's entitled to one. But, as a little girl, I've always wanted to make you and Mom proud. I was just being myself. I remember the times when I couldn't even go outside with my friends. And I understand that you were trying to protect me in a sense, but you would say on one hand, I could go out there with, and play with my friends that we used to stay in the neighborhood with way back when we were, behind those gates with the lions on them. And I'm just sitting inside, while you're upstairs asleep or doing whatever. And I'm not even able to be a kid. I'm literally right in front of I was going to play right in front of the house. We're in a gated community. And I couldn't even play with those kids. Now, I don't know if you knew something about those kids or what, but I didn't see anything wrong. I was a kid. We were just going to play right there. You could have just watched me or whatever. I don't see anything wrong with that. Or the time when, when I finally did come to live with you, after the horrible custody battle, finding out that Mom only wanted me as a paycheck, basically. And finding out some of the things that I was told about you that I still don't know to this day if they are true or not, but I know what I see. I know what I've been through as the truth. I feel like in a sense, in your own ways, you guys did try your best, but there are a lot of things that you guys need to address. You don't need to address them with me anymore because I'm addressing them here for myself so I can let it go. But there's been so much anger aimed at you as well because I could never speak. And whenever I did speak, you're just, making that up. Or, you just wanted to do whatever you wanted to do. Or, no, that's not what it was. You cannot tell me my reality. And then just to brush it off and dismiss it, like, all I wanted to do was make you and mom proud. I remember one time when we went to one of my uncle's house. And I used to watch you all the time, every time we went on a trip. You were with my stepmom since I was 3 years old. So keep that in mind, right? I'm watching you flirting with other women, talking to other women. I mean, every woman that I saw over there, you were flirting with them. As a little girl, I mean, what type of and then you would always tell me how men are. My grandfather wasn't like the man that you described. He made a lot of mistakes just like we all do, but I know he wasn't that kind of man. I know that my grandfather knew if he was married to somebody, that's who he's with. He's not going to step out of that. I watched you step out of your relationship time and time again. And even if I didn't see anything physical per se, I don't know what was going on when I was left at grandma's house. And granted, I don't need to know, but I need you to understand what type of example you're setting with that. That made me lose respect for you. The broken promises. All I wanted was to spend time with you. And there were times where you wouldn't even show up on the days you were supposed to come get me. There were times where when I was living with you, Dad, and I found out some things, even from your own mom, about how I had a sister out there in the world, or a half sister out there in the world, that you gave up rights to. You lied to me about it and said that that wasn't true. Why would your mom make that up? So you're lying to me. You're lying to the people around you in front of me. And granted, whenever I got in trouble, you didn't really take things to an extreme with the spankings. I will say that. But the punishments, there were times where it did get to an extreme, though. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But it was like I was on punishment for breaking a mug whenever I was doing dishes, or accidentally moved a mug and it fell and it broke. I would get yelled at for that. If I didn't have the dishes done or whatever, you would come up the stairs screaming at the top of your lungs. Whenever, my paper wasn't perfect or up to your standards, and I understand you're all about education, but I mean, you would make me do it until it was up to your standards, and then I could go to sleep. Like, just little things like that. Whenever I told you about the things I love to do, about me loving to sing and art, I was a very artistic person. And I'm saying was like that's changed. It hadn't changed. But I remember when I was in choir in high school, for example. And I remember you making a comment about, well, it's definitely no Christina Aguilera or something like that. I think I was 14 or 15 around this time. Why would you say something like that? I was literally singing to you what we were going to sing on stage. Because I made it in chorale, which is like a different tier of the choir group in the school I was going to. And that's what you say? Now, granted, you and my stepmom always tried to make it a point to where we go on trips and we have, Christmas dinners and Thanksgiving dinners. And I think that is something that I'm going to miss the most. But there was another side to all of that. Whenever I would try to express myself to you, even, it was always like it was a burden to you, or that I was making stuff up, or I just wanted to get attention. And that's not at all what it was. I wanted to be able to have a father, the kind of father that I saw all my friends have when I was at school. I wanted a dad that would show up when he said he was coming. I wanted a dad that actually followed through and made it a point to protect his daughter. You know, Dad, I have a lot of good memories with you too. You know, I remember we used to listen to music. I mean, you and Mom got some good taste in music, man. I tell you what, right? You know, I still listen to the music you guys showed me. At least we have that, right? But I remember, like, we would always laugh, like you would pass gas and shit. Like, I was younger, you know, and we would crack up about that. Just little silly things, just silly stuff. We were just being silly. I always felt like we had the most fun when it was just me and you. And I'm not saying that I didn't want my stepmom around. What I'm saying is when she was around, you would actively change. You wouldn't be the same when she was around. And you thought that I didn't want my stepmom around. That I love my stepmom. I still love her. And I know that maybe she's hurt because when I ran away, and I've never felt good about this, but when I ran away, it was when my stepmom got in a wreck. And you said she was okay. And at this time, things were so bad. This was after the black eye. This was after the school counselor had called me into her office to talk about the black eye. It was after the, like, not strip searches, but basically you're searching, you're telling me to, you know, you're looking under my clothes and making sure, because at the time you found a foil pipe in the house and all that. You know, I was smoking weed at the time and all that. And granted, I understand, you know, you didn't want it in your house. But, you know, and one time you thought I was lying to you about how I didn't skip school. And that's where that black eye came in. You know, it's like, then you found out that I was telling the truth. And you didn't even apologize for that. I know that you tried your best. I know that you and Mom, in your version of it, I feel like you guys, in your mind, you tried your best. And I respect that. I understand that, right? Because we're all human. I've made mistakes. I know I've hurt you. And I'm going to talk about my side of things too. Matter of fact, that's the next video that we're doing after this. But it's like, either you were lying to me, I'm watching you around other women. I mean, there was one time when I went to my uncle's house, right? And you don't tell it. I don't think that you've ever told anybody about this. And I don't think I've ever told anybody about this. But I was very young. I don't remember the age, but I was very young. At least before the age of 9. Let's say that. Because I remember when I was 9, I was put on a plane and you know. But I remember we were at my uncle's house. And this is what confuses me about you, Dad. Because there are good things that you've done. You were flirting with some lady outside. I remember I was talking to my cousins about it. And they were laughing and we're making fun of y'all or whatever, you know. Oh, there he goes again, you know. And I remember we heard this loud, like, whoosh. Like we heard a big old SUV barreling towards us, you know, because the house that my uncle stayed on was on the corner where the stop sign was. You know, is where the crossroads. So it's like you can go this way, or whatever. Like coming out of the neighborhood, basically. He was at the very end where the stop sign is, and then you go down close to his house, and that's where you can get back to the main streets and all that, right? Well, this wreck was so bad and they were going so fast that while I'm outside in the yard watching you talk to some chick out there and, the other uncle is grilling and stuff, and me and my cousins are, we just see this SUV whiz by. It started teetering on one side of itself to the other side of itself, went over the speed bump, and just completely flipped over. And do you know the size of that vehicle? It was a big old SUV. It looked like the size of a crushed can, damn near. And I remember, Dad, you immediately ran over and saw that some people ran from the car, but there was somebody still left inside. Mind you, I'm young. When I tell people I have CPTSD, I bet you this is a part of, one of the events that's a part of that, because I never forgot what I saw. And this is what confuses me about you, Dad, because I've seen you do these types of things where you've been helpful like this. You took this girl out of this vehicle. She had no skin. I just remember a bloody heap and what looked like smoke was coming out of the lungs, or it was, I couldn't even tell where her face was, and then you're hovering over her, and you got this white shirt on and it's all bloodied up, and I'm like, what is it? It happened so fast. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I'm seeing you helping this woman. And, you told me, because I ended up having nightmares about it for a while. I couldn't go to sleep for a while after that. Seeing something like that at a young age, that does something to you. We never talked about it again. When I had asked you later on, hey, what happened to that girl? You told me that she made it, she made a full recovery, that she was still in the hospital, but she's okay. I don't know if that was true or not, but maybe, maybe that was your way of just telling, because I don't know what happened. Maybe she did. But, and I'm not saying that was your fault or anything, but I'm just saying, I saw you doing something to help someone in a big way. So I know that there's something in there. But when it comes to my feelings on certain things, or how I feel about what you said about me or to me or whatever, you would just say that I'm boyish or whatever, or I just never felt like I was good enough. I didn't feel like you saw me. Now, you always try to instill good values in me in regards to like doing sports and, doing all these things. But at the same time, emotionally, you were not available in that sense. It really hurt me when, for example, I said to you, well, I guess I got in trouble about something. Maybe you found a book in my backpack that was a little bit on the risque side, but at this time, I think I was like 15, 16 or something like that. And it was a friend of mine's book, and I decided to read it. And granted, it was a little bit graphic, but not really, but it wasn't even my book. You guys found the book, and I think, but anyway, when I was expressing to you how I really felt, because it's like you guys were asking me, what's going on with you? And da-da-da-da. And I didn't really know how to express myself at the time. I just knew that I wasn't happy living with you. Either I was getting screamed at, or with the black eye situation, you thought, granted, I understand, maybe I didn't tell you certain things that I was doing, or, granted, I was rebelling. Yeah, I was. I'm not going to sit up here and act like I was innocent, but the way that you handled that, the black eye was so big, they had to pull me out of the hallway, Dad, and you thought I was lying, and I wasn't. Just things like that. Not apologizing to me, not really making me feel like I'm worthy of love. You would always tell me that men are, horrible, and I'm watching you do horrible things, and you're lying to me about my half-sister, and you're not really following through on your promises, and all of these things. It really hurt me when you did these things. When I ran away, it was after the black eye situation. I felt trapped. I could never go out with my friends. Maybe here or there you'd let me do something. And I do agree with how you handled things when it came to meeting the parents. But there were just some other things where I couldn't go on field trips, like where I'd have a chaperone because either I got in trouble because of this or that. I felt like I had to miss out on what other kids were able to do. I mean, why would being on punishment have to make me not be able to go on field trips, not be able to participate in the activities with other kids? I felt like a prisoner. I felt like no matter what I did, it was always, oh, you're doing this wrong. Oh, you're not doing this right. This not good enough. If it's an A, I want an A plus, which granted, the grades thing I understand, but mom didn't have to do any of that. I already loved school. I was a straight A student. The micromanaging, the put downs, trying to make it seem like what I felt like didn't matter to you. Not being there when I really needed you. Not giving a good example to me as a father. These things have affected me. I'm not blaming you or mom because as an adult, I understand that I'm responsible for me. But this video is for me to speak the truth. Not just my truth, the truth. Accept things as they are and move on. Release. I'm ready to release you two. Because I know now, granted, although I was not perfect by any means, not saying that, but every time I try to come to the both of you and talk to you about how some of the things that were done and said made me feel, or even not done and not said made me feel, it was like I couldn't tell you anything because it didn't matter to you. You didn't believe it. You didn't think it was important enough. So, my last statement is this. When I ran away from you, you think it was because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. No, I felt trapped. I was miserable there. I couldn't be myself. I couldn't be with friends. It was like every other day I was on punishment, and the punishment lasted for months for infractions that weren't even that serious. Not doing the dishes or some I understand discipline, but it's like I could never make you proud. I could never breathe. I could never be myself. And the person that was supposed to protect me was lying to me. Out here talking to all these women. Never does the things that they said they were going to do with me. And that's it. I didn't want to be there anymore. I wanted to be away from that. I didn't want to be trapped in that. I'm thinking, I'm like, oh my God, I want to leave this. Like I felt like I was in isolation or something. And granted, even with those Christmas dinners and Thanksgiving dinners and everything, those were very nice. They really were. I thought it was nice that we had family time in that way. But then when, people aren't around or whatever, it's a different story. I'm hearing from everybody else, all these other family members that you're still saying, talking about, I stepped over you when you had a heart attack. When did you have a heart attack? When did that happen, Dad? You know that never happened. And I'm sorry that I hurt you for running away, but honestly, I'm glad that I did. As crazy as the journey has been, you said that I would end up dead or in jail. And what's funny is the times where I did go to jail, like truancy or whatever, because I was trying to go back to school because I didn't finish high school. And I was like, I need to get my GED because I'm not going to be able to have a job without a GED. I knew the importance of that. And so I took care of the GED, took care of everything that I needed to do because when I ran away, I didn't want to be at the school so you'd find me again. That's why that happened. because I knew it was going to go right back. I knew I was just going to be, I couldn't, I'm sorry, Dad. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I just felt unlovable. I felt like you didn't even want me there. I felt like it would be better if I wasn't around. Maybe you'd be happier if I wasn't around. Because it seemed like me being around was just a burden to you. There were times, yeah, when we had our little laughs and all of that. There were times where, yeah, we had some good holidays, of course. But when times were bad, oh boy. And when I needed to come to you to express something to you about something or tell you what it is that I like to do, now you weren't trying to hear that. You were very dismissive of who I was as a person, and I couldn't bear that. I'm sorry. After the black eye incident, I definitely couldn't bear it. I couldn't do it anymore. The constant yelling. It really hurt me when, I said I didn't want to be here anymore. And what did you do? You pulled out your gun that you've always had since I was a little girl, put it on the table and said, well, then do it then. Do you think that that was helpful at the time? Do you understand why there's so much anger? Even if you don't understand, that's why I had so much anger. That's why I had so much pain. If somebody is telling you that that's how they feel, that they don't want to be alive anymore, I promise you that's not the way to go. And that said everything. You don't care. You didn't even care about the feelings that I was expressing to you. About something as heavy as that. And that's something I had been feeling. It wasn't the first time I said something like that. Well, then just do it then. Put the gun down on the table. Why would you do that? I wish you were more like your cousin. I wish that you would do. I mean, yeah, I sure can't brag about my daughter to all I remember you used to say that all the time. I can't brag about my daughter when you're out here getting in trouble and da-da-da. I just need you to know that I will always love you as well. I really will. And this video, I'm not even going to lie to you. I feel like a weight has been lifted off of my shoulders, off of my heart, my mind, my body, and my spirit. Because now I can release it without needing to have anybody else validate and hear it. The reason why this is in video form is, number one, I have every right to express myself about the things I went through on my channel. The reason why I'm doing this is not only to release you and Mom for myself and to free myself, but to also show other people that they can have the courage. It's okay for them to be open and honest and express what really happened to them. What really happened to them. Even if the family doesn't agree, even if the family doesn't believe you. I know what I've been through. Some of these things are way too specific for somebody to just sit around making up. Anyway, who would do that? Honey, that's a waste of time and energy. I'm somewhat lazy, honey. I'm not going to be making stuff up for a whole video. For what? Girl, bye. That's too. You got to come up with a script. You got to remember to do. Girl, bye. No, we coming off the dome with this one. That's funny that I was about to say doom. We coming off the dome with this one. So this may be upsetting to some family members, and I hear you. But again, this is for those people out there who feel isolated, who feel alone, who feel like they can't express themselves, who feel like they have no voice, who have been abused, who have been lied on, who have been silenced, who have been dismissed, who have been ignored, who have been, without protection for all this time. This video is a testament to how you can overcome and how it's okay to be open and honest about these things. So I don't want to drag this out any further than I already have. But Tell the truth to yourselves, mom and dad. You don't have to tell it to me anymore. I love you both, and I hope one day you can understand. But even if you don't, I am free. You will not hurt me anymore. I don't care what you have to say about me or about it. What I am doing is for the greater good, not just for myself, but for those who are dealing with the same thing. For those that have to go through it alone and overcome it alone, without family, without support. I hope one day, like I said, things change, but if not, I love you and I release you.